Thank you for joining us for episode 3 of this leadership series. Today we're going to talk about how many chances is too many for an employee who is either underperforming or not meeting expectations. So how many chances does it take before you admit what you already know? Well, at some point, you're not being patient. You're just avoiding the obvious. Now, there's a moment every leader, manager, director, VP meets, and it's not ever really dramatic. Maybe sometimes it is. And it doesn't come with fireworks. At least it shouldn't. Sometimes it just comes quietly. It's like a thought you keep pushing away. Well, you see it and you feel it and you know it. But sometimes you keep telling yourself, well, maybe next week. Maybe they're just adjusting. Maybe I'm being too hard. And what sounds like patience becomes something else. It becomes your own self-deception. Because there's a difference between giving someone time to grow and giving someone time to keep failing. Now, a wise leader understands grace. No doubt. But a strong leader understands patterns. Benefit of the doubt is just a season. It's not a permanent residence. And if you've been leading for any length of time, well, you've seen this. You can have the heart of the teacher, the patience of the mentor, and still end up running a daycare for grown-ass adults. So let's name it clearly. There's a stage where someone's new. They're learning. They need coaching. They absolutely need repetition, support, and of course clarity from you. That's normal. But then there's another stage where the same problem keeps happening. The same excuses keep showing up, and the same misunderstanding mysteriously keeps benefiting them. Now we're not coaching anymore, are we? Now we're negotiating with our own reality. Here's the simple truth that you need to understand. A mistake is an event, but a pattern from someone is a decision. And the leader who can't tell the difference will spend their career confused, exhausted, and surrounded by the same results. So I'll give it to you like this. If you've told somebody the standard, and they miss it once, coach them. And if they miss it twice, train them with a bit more structure. But if they miss it 3 times and there's no changes, now you're no longer dealing with a skill gap here. You're dealing with a will gap. And in every workplace, willpower matters more than talent. Because talent without responsibility is a liability. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable for some leaders and managers. Most leaders don't fail because they're too harsh. They fail because they're too hesitant. Now they delay what they already know. They let the team watch standards get negotiated. They let high performers carry the weight. They let morale decay because they don't want the conflict. But let me tell you this. Avoiding conflict isn't kindness to anyone. It's cowardice on your part dressed up in compassion. Because while you're protecting one underperformer from discomfort, you're punishing every other good worker who shows up on time, tries hard, does the right thing, and takes pride in their job. And that isn't fairness at all. It certainly isn't leadership, and you should know that. That's the slow betrayal of your own standards, isn't it? And this is where leaders have to learn the discipline of the conversation. I'm not talking about an emotional explosion or some exchange of text messages. Not the passive-aggressive hints that you give somebody. Not the, we'll see. Next time they do this, I'll do this. I'm talking about a clear conversation. Now, a conversation that sounds like this. Here's the standard. Here's what happened. Here's what's got to change. Here's your timeline. And here's what's going to happen if it doesn't. Now, if that's harsh for you, I'm sorry. If you believe that to be cruelty, it isn't. It's clarity. And clarity is love in leadership form. In the first 90 days, people will learn what you truly tolerate. Not what you say you tolerate, what you actually allow. Now you can put values on a wall. You can write standards in a handbook. You can hang up little sheets of paper that try to hint at who you are and what you believe in. But your team watches your behavior like it's scripture. And if you tolerate the lateness, you teach lateness. If you tolerate excuses, you teach excuses. And if you tolerate disrespect, you better bet you teach disrespect. Because people don't rise to your expectations. They fall to the level that you permit them to. Now you can turn the ship around and take control and ownership of your own leadership skills. Now the goal isn't to create a fearful workplace. The goal is to create an ownership workplace. Now the best leaders don't scream, they don't threaten. They'll build a culture where people take responsibility before they're asked. But that culture doesn't come from speeches. It comes from standards that you enforce. Quietly, consistently, and fairly across the board. Leadership's not about intensity. It's more about consistency. In the book The Laws of Human Nature, Incentives and Avoidance, they talk about human nature. People will do what works. If showing up late still works, they'll keep doing it. If missing the standard still works, why would they change? If apologizing resets the consequence, well then they'll keep apologizing. But repeated underperformance isn't confusion. It's calculation. It's manipulation. No, it's not always malicious, of course. Sometimes unconscious, maybe. But it's still a learned pattern. The pattern is, I can get away with this. And a leader must break that spell early. Now, today, this gets even trickier. Because a lot of leaders are afraid. They're afraid of being accused of being unfair, afraid of saying the wrong thing, afraid of the HR department, afraid of their boss and what they'll think, afraid of losing people they can't replace. And yes, turnover's real, hiring's hard, I get it. Training takes time. But let me tell you what's harder. Keeping the wrong people. Because the wrong person doesn't just underperform, they multiply the dysfunction of an organization. They teach others how to give lower effort. They drain your best people because you'll have to have somebody do the work. They increase workload, rework, repeat contacts, escalations. Whatever your industry's into, you don't pay for them once. You pay for it every day. And you pay with the trust of your team. So don't let fear make you faithless to your standards. Now here's a checkpoint that I want you to remember. If they've had the training, the reminders, the coaching, and the follow-ups, and all the second chances, and their behavior remains, it's you that are no longer managing performance. You're managing your own discomfort in some way. And leadership requires the courage to do what you know is right, not what you hope becomes true. You can't simply sit back and wait to see if people will change when they've given you a solid pattern and a history to look at. Because hope is not a strategy. And I'll close with this. A leader's job is not to be liked. A leader's job is to build a standard people can trust. And when you enforce that standard with calm strength, you don't just correct one person, you protect the entire team. So go ahead and give people room to grow, yes, but don't give them permission to stay the same. Because at some point, patience without action becomes self-deception, and the truth will always collect its debt, sooner or later. Benefit of the doubt is a season. But if you recognize the obvious before it costs you your culture, you'll be in a good spot.